Alright everyone, it's time to talk about Vermont Issues Episode 5, high taxes, sort of the regulation and poverty problem here in the state of Vermont. Because a lot of people, they don't really know anything about Vermont or even northern New England at large. There's similar problems in Maine and New Hampshire to an extent. Vermont, I think, has this problem in the most prevalent manner. Maybe slightly wrong for some communities, but overall, I think it's pretty inarguable. Here's something people need to understand about the state of Vermont. The little tourist towns that you typically visit and patronize when you fly in, like to go skiing or to go leaf peeping or something like that. Like fall is leaf peeping. People come to watch the leaves change color. I don't understand it, but because you can watch them change color in other states too. Okay, I just don't get that part. They come here to go skiing. It's like you could also go to. There are places in New Hampshire you can ski. There are places in Colorado certainly that you can go skiing in. For some reason, a hell of a lot of people like it here. It's like the Rutland population almost doubles the metro area's temporary population during the peak ski season. It can double. You can end up with like 55,000 people temporarily residing in and around the general region. Where the metro normally has like 25,000 people in it. I can remember Woodstock, a little village that I grew up in. You wouldn't believe how many people you'd see there during peak tourist times, including midsummer for some reason. It seemed like a lot of people came from like the Middle East. I saw dudes in like full like Saudi robes walking down the street. I'm going to assume it was some Saudi noble or something if he's vacationing in Woodstock of all places. I can remember that. I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. Yeah, at the time, I was like, it's awesome to see, I guess. It's like I wanted to go ask him questions. It wouldn't have been a great idea, though. But I mean, several thousand people would pour into this relatively small village. At not just the Woodstock Inn, but all of the Shire Motel and all these places would be jam-packed with full reservations for months at a time. Like, they make a killing. Honestly, helps the local economy. But what people don't realize is that there's a little bit of a darker side to Vermont. And that's that because of our massive tax rates, our basically anti-business social situation, that is, the government here doesn't really like businesses moving into the state. They say so. They make a big show about wanting to attract business. But unless it's a green energy firm or a really squeaky clean tech startup or something, they really don't want local businesses. They don't want apparently any business at all. They want to retain. They want to retain the businesses that are already here. And if one of them folds, they make a big stink about it and they try their best to throw subsidies or whatever their way. But ultimately, businesses have a real difficult time maintaining in Vermont. Unless it's in a tourist area, unless they're connected with tourism, in which case they make half their money out of a few weeks in the year. Unless that's the case, and that leads to a lot of, by the way, temporary job positions that don't really help the population, which is why we have the unemployment we do in most cases. Now, unless they're like that, the government doesn't care if they're here. It's like I can remember for years and years when I was a kid, and this goes hand in hand with the NIMBY stuff. McDonald's wanted to open up an outlet in Woodstock, the village that I was living in. And they never would let them. They would never zone the land for them. It's like everything, nope, sorry, we're full. There's no room to expand. Now here's a village of like 1,400 people. There actually is plenty of extra land that the township could, decide to allow to be developed. It's not like there's no empty space along the main road. The area that they wanted to relocate to already had like a gas station and, the town, I believe, like the fire and police service stuff. So it's not exactly the touristy part of Woodstock. It's like apart from that. And the so-called downtown is the tourist core of this little town. It's like when I was over there going through Woodstock, through to Bridgewater for my grandfather's funeral. That wasn't even peak tourist season. It was still jam-packed. There's this little village. It doesn't even really have blocks as you would generally describe it. It looks more like some little western town, only more humid. During the 1800s or something. It's basically everything's on this one main road. for the equivalent of maybe 3 blocks in length and 1 in width. And those are the businesses that you have there. That and the inn and stuff. They have the big Central Park set up and stuff, which, by the way, does actually have the cremated remains of a Victorian so-called vampire buried under the center. That actually is a true story. It's not fake. They thought it was vampirism. They decided to inter this individual there under the crossroads to keep him from rising from the dead because they didn't know anything about tuberculosis. Just sort of the way that it worked during the New England tuberculosis scare. But, yeah, the state has massively high taxes. We've got a fairly high sales tax. The property tax is massively high. Unless you're on the impoverished side, if you're making less money, they adjust it downwards so that people can hopefully retain whatever land or home they've managed to amalgamate in their general poverty. But those are high. The state income tax rate is insane. Like, I can't remember what the bracket I'm looking at is going to be, but it's pretty high. Like, if I move to almost any other state, the top bracket, if they have any state income tax at all, would be lower than what I'm going to have to pay on the income that I'm already making. And this has been a problem for people who are more on the entrepreneurial side. There's no reason to stay in the state. And these high taxes, by the way, don't even pay for, like, really good infrastructure. You'd think if the state tax rate is high, you'd think, well, they're spending on infrastructure and education and everything else. They do that for education in this state. We've got, I think we're number 2 in the United States as far as our educational attainment. I think Minnesota finally pulled ahead of us, but I think we might have pulled back ahead of them as well. New Hampshire's up there. They've got a roughly similar situation, but you go to New Hampshire, they don't have the sales tax. I believe they don't have a property tax for many types of properties, and the cost of living is lower, and yet they manage to attain that. And it's not like they're living in squalor with, like, high crime or anything. It's because we've got this, like, cottage tourist industry, and that's our whole budget. So they want to keep it green and have, like, the green energy, but they don't want they don't want wind farms, and they don't want solar fields, and they don't want people to hook up home solar without being regulated, because we're a regulation-happy state, too. What the tourists also don't see is if you go to any of the more urban-y spots in Vermont, like parts of downtown Rutland around the Gut, or parts of certainly South Burlington, there is rampant poverty. There's some urban decay. Part of it is opioid-related. Part of it's related to the tax rate and the fact that a lot of people can't find jobs. And as far as our unemployment rate being supposedly really low, I question that. I think if we counted for underemployment, we'd be one of the worst off states in the country. If we accounted for people who, because of the regulatory and tax situation, can never find a job that gives them more than $1 above minimum wage, and so they're trying to make ends meet in a high rent state too. Like, we have problems with that being costs. I looked around. See, I like to do some shopping comparisons here. I looked around at other states, their tax rates, how much it costs to rent, how much land costs and stuff. And you wouldn't believe how expensive our state is. It's on par, like, on par with parts of California or something like that. It's very expensive, and you don't even get the nice weather here. Yeah, you have less crime, maybe better educational rankings, but unless you're raising kids in the state and you're independently wealthy, that's not really helping you. And what happens in this state is we produce very, very literate young adults. They get, like, the top tier high school education they could get. It's on par with anything you're going to find in Germany or Switzerland. And because of the regulatory and tax situation, there are no jobs for these very literate individuals. Those who have done very well, and they go to college or something, whether in-state or not, and half the time they leave the state even for that, because out-of-state tuition in some states is lower than our in-state tuition. They go to some state college or something, they get a world-class education, they're on par with anybody educated in public Ivy. And then they leave the state, go make their fortune. When they're old, they come back. When they're older, they might come back to raise kids here to get the next generation of people who will move out of the state. Or they wait till they retire early because they were working on an oil rig or something somewhere. They come back, buy their McMansion on the hillside, and then everything's fine because they got the passive income that's not really, it's not taxed as much by the state or by the federal government, which, by the way, is ridiculous, honestly. It strangulates the economy. We should be prioritizing those that are actually working at the time, and not spending so much fucking money on all these other things. But is Vermont a good place to start a business? Yes, if it's green energy, that's fine. If it's small tech related, if it's something that can get a subsidy, like a handout from the government, you'll do just fine, because then the state will say, oh, you know, welfare or something like that. Otherwise, no, you wouldn't want to open like a restaurant in Vermont. Unless you were already here to begin with, you've already got the capital to do so, and it's not a huge risk. There aren't that many businesses going up in Vermont. Like, a lot of parts of Vermont are exactly the same as they were when I was a little kid. I can remember, like here in Rutland, there's been a little bit of change. We got a few more box stores. The mall is more dilapidated, and there are a few less like foreclosed homes or something. Otherwise, though, it's basically the same here in Rutland as it was when I was going to high school, 10 years ago. It's basically the same. Woodstock, I hadn't even seen Woodstock in half a decade or something. It is exactly the same. Nothing has changed. There is not one change in any business, as far as I know, in the entire area. It is exactly the same. Now, they keep it like that for the tourist money, but that's the thing. All those employees are still making low wages, and they still have to pay the sky-high rental cost and everything else. Like, they're not going to buy a home. You try buying a home in the Woodstock area. Oh, my God. You try buying one outside of it. You go to Quechee and try to buy a home. Go to Bridgewater at this point. Even that semi-rural, like his former like redneck farming community, with the biker shop and everything. You try buying a home there, see how much it costs. What our state has done is prioritize bringing a bunch of wealthy retirees into the state to pay enough in taxes to pay for the subsidies that we use to make the educational system so good. But then those people get educated and they move off. We've also got a homeless problem in the state. I hate to burst the bubble of all these tourists who think that we're like shirelings or something. We have real problems in the state like you do. The fact that we have a lot of trees doesn't save us from that. It makes it very pristine, very clean. The air smells good. It's rather nice. The roads, while dilapidated half the time, are less congested until you come skiing. That's why you see a problem maybe on that end. But we do have a problem like homeless people. Like, I see them all the time here in Rutland. It's more prevalent in Rutland or Burlington than anywhere else. Or White River Junction. Maybe I haven't been to Barrie lately, so I can't vouch for that. But there are blighted spots in the state. It's like we've also got some technological backwardsness. We got a Comcast monopoly. The Northeast Kingdom didn't even have broadband internet access until a few years ago. They were still using dial-up. They had to use like a satellite card or something if they wanted something faster than a phone could go. How weird is that? And they're paying, so many taxes to be in this state that's cold 5 months out of the year, without the benefit of being wealthy enough to even go skiing at the same places that a bunch of out-of-staters are going to. We call them flatlanders, people from the rather flat urban metro region from like New York to D.C. into other places as well. The sort of flat areas of like Massachusetts don't really count because then there's a different term for them. There are all sorts of terms that are used in Vermont and some in northern New England in general that other people don't understand. Like flatlander or masshole, that's more common elsewhere too. No offense to people from Massachusetts, most of it's related to driving capabilities. But Vermont's not the same as some people think. They come here, they see pristine stuff, and they think of it as being like, oh, it's like Camp Candy or something like that. It's just nonstop nature. Yeah, well, people have to pay taxes to keep it pristine. Like, in order for the roads to be passable, we pay high taxes. It doesn't help that the state centralizes everything. It makes it woefully inefficient. Like, the road crews, they try their best with, honestly, some limited resources. Then you get the demographic crisis. You get an aging population in many parts of the state. How long are they going to be able to maintain the roads they got? Are they going to have to tear some of those up? Are we going to end up, being Detroitized without having any big cities at all? Like Burlington's the only place that would be able to survive that. That or Montpelier, because it's a money sponge because the politicians are there. So Rutland gets screwed. Like we're the second largest metro region in Vermont. We get screwed constantly. We have none of the benefits of Burlington. And part of that has been due to the fact that we had shitty leadership for so many years. We've got someone else as mayor now. Maybe things improve. But the demographic problem here alone offsets any real benefit that's brought. There's a homeless problem. There's a drug problem. We've got high taxes, too many regulations. Businesses can't move in. Businesses that you want to retain move out. People move out as soon as they graduate so they can go get a job in some city somewhere. And that's basically what happens. Like, I like it for the small town feel, but there are other small town America places where the taxes cost half of what they are here. They're half the regulatory burden. You go to Texas, to some of the small towns there, what taxes? It's almost a foreign concept. You go to parts of the Mid-Atlantic, I don't mean Maryland, but you know what I mean, or the Deep South, it's the same thing. In some of these states, they're not backwater mode. Some of these states are quite literate. Don't have, in the small town regions, any more of a crime problem than we do, and have better weather to boot. And I just don't understand why our state has to function the way it does. I think if we slash taxes and get rid of a lot of those regulatory burdens, a compromise can be made to where people here can get good jobs without sacrificing the tourist revenue that some parts of the state do need. I think it's possible to balance these two things. You know, somebody comes here from some urban area, they've never seen so many trees in their life. Somebody a while ago, when I was joking around about the UK clear-cutting off all of its forests in order to have non-stop farms and jam-packed, because it's so, dense in population. They said, oh, the UK has more forests than the state of Vermont. Then I pointed out the discrepancy between land area, and I'm like, well, we do have a lot of trees in this state. It's like 92% forested. We've got way more trees than we have people. In some parts of the world, they're not so lucky. But it comes at a cost. For many, many decades, it has come at a very, very steep cost for the people of Vermont. We're getting sorely outcompeted by basically everybody else in the country, so that we're totally reliant on tourist revenue. And we're one economic downturn away from not just being in a recession, but a depression. It used to be Vermonters were like self-sufficient. It was like a lot of farms. And so when the Great Depression hit, Vermont actually didn't take that much of a hit. We didn't really have the whole electricity and paved road thing anyway to lose. And things pretty much limped along as they had been in Vermont. During that period of time, we were heavily advertised even then as a tourist enclave. It's like, oh, it's beautiful up there, and forget about all the economic problems, because they never had an economy, basically. It was like the Shire, essentially. Because we've become totally reliant, though, on tourist revenue, if other people in the country stop doing the tourist thing, it would hammer us. We'd get ripped apart. We don't have anything else to fall back on. And I think in the future that's going to rear its ugly head, and Vermont's going to get basically wiped out as a state. We're going to be left hemorrhaging, and we're not going to recover any. We're going to need so much massive overhaul to recover when that happens, and it will. In the long span of things, give it a decade and a half, it will happen. We saw what the recession formerly did here. It hit us harder than most parts of the country. There were so many foreclosed homes. There were so many empty businesses. Rutland turned into a ghost town. Burlington fared better because of UVM. But, still, there were problems there, too. You wouldn't even believe, like, White River Junction is, like, insane. And that could happen again. The next time, if there was a more severe economic downturn, imagine what would happen here. You get a joint housing bubble with, like, a student loan bubble or something like that. What's going to be left of this state? Yeah, I can make ends meet because I'm self-employed. A lot of people, they're not so lucky. They're living paycheck to paycheck anyway. What the fuck are they supposed to do? Their landlord says, I can no longer afford to rent this property. I can't even afford to have the property. Sorry, folks, but all 20, 30 people here are homeless. And there's nowhere else to go for them, and the rent's high anyway, so where are they supposed to go? That's about all. Peace out.